Okay. Good evening and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. I, Mohit Kapil, Assistant Professor in the Department of Management Studies at SDIIT and event co-convener, along with my colleague, Mr. Paramjit Singh Ahuja, and co-convener of BFSI Conclave cum FDP, welcome you all. So I just want to take your quick attention towards the vision of SDIET, Satyug Darshan Institute of Engineering and Technology. It's an institute that develops competent professionals with high ethics and moral values to lead the society for a peaceful tomorrow through disseminating of true knowledge, service to mankind, and to transfer ordinary aspirants to extraordinary by imparting application based education. So, by keeping vision and mission of SDIT in mind, today we are presenting new frontiers, trends, and skill development in insurance industry through and post COVID 2019. Today, I welcome our eminent speaker, Mr. Vibhash Nayak. He is an Executive Vice President, HR, Learning and Development and Administration at HDFC Life. So now, without further ado, I would like to recapitalize the yesterday's highlights. It was the day one of this conclave, which held as an inaugural session. BFI conclave cum FDP began with the blessings of Shri S.K. Sachdevaji, Chairman, Board of Governors, SDIIT, Dr. Sunil Garg, Registrar, J.C. Bose University of Science and Technology, YMCA Faridabad as a chief guest, Dr. M.N. Deshmukh, Principal, SDIIT, Faridabad as a patron, Dr. Raj Agarwal, Director, All India Management Association, Center for Management Association, and Mr. Abhay Kapoor, President, Faridabad Management Association as event co-organizer. And we were very fortunate to listen Mr. Alok Shivpurkar, Executive Vice President and Head HR, SDFC AMC Limited as a keynote speaker. So, just a little housekeeping before we get started. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them in the chat box in your Zoom control panel and I'll bring them up at the Q&A session. Now, I'm pleased to introduce our Dean Madam, Dean Academics, SDIT, and Chairperson and Convener of this event, Dr. Sangeeta Trehan. She is a top-ranked graduate from Department of Mathematical Sciences, Purdue School of Sciences, IUPUI USA, and from Department of Economics, Delhi School of Economics, Delhi University, and later Indiana Institute of Foreign Trade, New Delhi. She is a PhD, IIFT, MA, DSc, MBA, and MS in Applied Statistics from IUPUI. Dr. Sangeeta Trehanji has internationally benchmarked education. She has with her over 18 years of experience, primarily in academia in India and abroad. She taught undergraduates at Indiana University IUPUI campus as faculty for 3 years between 2003 to 2005. Besides IUPUI, she has been an academic visitor to or taught and administered educational research programs at various management and engineering institutes and universities in India and abroad, like Trinity College, Dublin, Ireland, IIFT Delhi, KG Sumaya Institute of Management Mumbai, AIT, and AU, etc. She conducted research, reviewed some of the course contents, and thus contributed a lot towards the development and promotion of SWAM and NPTEL, OERS, and MOOCs in 2015, in association with the chief players, NPTEL, and the CEC, one of the inter-university centers set up by the UGC. She has over a dozen research articles and papers to her credit. She is a dedicated educationist and an extremely well-versed multidisciplinary academia. She is a team leader. She inspires and motivates students and her team. Now, I would like to invite our Dean Ma'am, Dean Academics and Head of the Department of Management Studies to grace this event by her valuable words.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mohit, for that long introduction. STIET has been associating with industries to organize from time to time useful conclaves and seminars for the benefit of all the stakeholders. So in this vein, we brought you this BFSI conclave, come FDP, in association with FMA and scores of our industry partners. Now, BFSI actually is a very diversified term. It is an industry with several components, of course, including banks and insurance companies, financial service companies, regulators, and NBFCs, and other stock market players and merchant bankers, and several other smaller components. So yesterday we had Mr. Shivpurkar kick off the deliberations during this 5-day conclave, and on each of these subsequent days, we have decided to focus on different components of the BFSI industry each day. Like, as you know, today we are going to dwell on the insurance sector, specifically the life insurance sector. So today we bring you an expert industry speaker and mentor from HDFC Life, who would be throwing light on the life insurance industry, like how its DNA has been changing, how it is likely to change further through and post-COVID 2019, how, for instance, HDFC Life has been adapting to the new economic and social contexts, and finally, what are some desirable skills that are required and expected in order to join the industry. So with this agenda, I welcome all the participants and extend a very warm welcome to our distinguished speaker, Mr. Vibhash Nayak, EVP HR, Learning and Development and Administration from HDFC Life. And before I hand over the mantle to him, I would like to briefly introduce him. So Mr. Vibhash has 21 long years of experience in the financial industry, financial service industry. Prior to joining HDFC Life, he has been associated with a number of top-notch companies like Atos Origin, Lehman Brothers, and Religare Macquarie Private Wealth. He's graduated from University of Mumbai in 1998 with a master's in labor studies, human resources. So over to you, Mr. Nayak. Again, a very warm greeting to you, and it's all yours.
Thanks a lot, Sangeeta, and thanks, Mohit, for the good introduction. A warm welcome to all of you. Love talking to each one of you. I would have loved to kind of be in person, but in the current times, I think a virtual webinar is probably what's on, and very happy to kind of connect with each one of you virtually. I have a small presentation, so let me just put up the presentation, and I'll use this presentation as a reference point. But I'll also kind of talk through a lot of things which may not be there on the slides, and towards the end, probably we can open it up for questions. Okay, so I'll just put up my presentation. Just give me a minute. I hope the presentation is seen.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. Sure. So good evening, everyone. On a Sunday evening, to kind of dedicate your time for a webinar, it's my honor that a set of people have kind of logged in today to hear. So I'll try to kind of make it as useful as possible for you guys, so that you don't feel that on a Sunday evening you wasted your time. I head human resources for HDFC Life, and my topic for today is new frontiers in skill development in insurance through and post-COVID. So I will be speaking largely about the life insurance sector. Okay, that's where I've been. I had joined HDFC Life in 2001, left in 2004, and again joined back HDFC Life in 2011. So it's been almost 14 years of existence within the life insurance sector. So I'll speak with my experience in terms of how the insurance sector has unfolded over the years, and what is the future looking like as far as the insurance sector is concerned. Essentially, there are 3 parts to my presentation. I will give you an overview of the life insurance landscape. Secondly, I'll just talk about the second part of the presentation will be around trends shaping the future of work. Especially with COVID, I think industry is looking at things differently, and how the future of work is likely to shape up is something that I'll talk about. And with the new normal coming into existence, what are the new realities for skill development? Before I start to kind of talk about the life insurance sector, let me give you a little history. It's important for us to kind of know, where this industry, how it started, and where we are at this point of time before we delve into the future. So let me give you a little idea about in terms of what really happened way back. Life insurance in this country was dominated by one player, that's Life Insurance Corporation of India, LIC, as we all know, for a very, very long time. 2000 is when the insurance sector opened up for private players. Just like the way banks have RBI as the regulator, life insurance sector has got IRDAI, Insurance Regulatory Development Authority, as our regulator. And they decided to kind of give license to a set of players to operate in this space, a set of private players to operate in this space. Otherwise, LIC was the only player that existed. There was a monopolistic existence of LIC all this while in the life insurance space. HDFC Life, the company that I represent, we were the first private life insurance company to get a license. Okay, this was in 2000. And eventually, many players kind of got into this space, and IRDA kind of gave license to multiple players over the years. Currently, there are close to around 24 players that exist, private players that exist in the life insurance space. The initial days was all about trying to set up the distribution, setting up processes, putting the building blocks in place. And ensuring that you're setting up a good franchise which will see the test of times. If you look at the life insurance industry per se, there are actually the kind of services and products that the life insurance company offers. They would be typically around three things. First would be mortality, morbidity. Second is morbidity, and third is longevity. When I say mortality would typically mean having a set of products that would cover the risk of death. Morbidity would be covering the risk of health, and longevity would typically mean people kind of are living longer. The life expectancy has kind of increased over the years, and post retirement, how does one cover the risk of not having income that comes from your working life? So how do you basically kind of have a pension that can kind of sees you through during your retirement life, in the form of pensions, annuities, so on and so forth. And most of the products are typically around these things. Let me talk about in terms of what potential the life insurance sector holds at this point of time. And if you look at the opportunities that exist in the life insurance industry, and I would like you to kind of draw your attention to the graphs on the PPT. Two important parameters compared to the global benchmarks. Insurance market is fairly underpenetrated. In fact, if you look at this graph here, density of life insurance and life insurance penetration, as I've put it out there. Life insurance penetration is the total premium collected by the industry divided by GDP. And if we compare ourselves with some of the other players in the Southeast Asian market, we are barely at 2.7%, while you will see a few other countries like Taiwan and Hong Kong with 17.5% or so. Same is the case with life insurance density. So premium divided by total population, $6,756 US for a country like Hong Kong to India, barely $55. Despite new product offerings and macro drivers, we expect the insurance penetration in the country to kind of increase over years, but we've not, at this point of time, it's a fairly underpenetrated market in some sense. A similar statistics, which is around protection gap. And this talks about, So, if you would have asked ourselves this question, do Indian households have enough financial protection cover to carry on with life in the event of an untimely death of a breadwinner? And the data shows that almost 92.9% of the total population is not covered. It's not insured as far as India is concerned. And if you compare again with a few other countries, I think we've got a highest protection gap in this country. In fact, the very reason why private players were kind of allowed to kind of enter the life insurance space was because we were fairly underpenetrated. The protection gap was pretty huge, and that's how a lot of players kind of got a license to operate in this space, so that we are able to kind of decrease this protection gap. And lot many Indian players got into a JV with foreign players who had expertise in the business of life insurance, and that's how 24 players ultimately existed in this space. But if you look at these two slides, both density of insurance density as well as penetration as well as protection gap, there is a huge opportunity that we need to kind of seize. Another interesting statistics, if you look at the life expectancy in 2015, it was 67 years. And based on all estimates, if we were to kind of look at the life expectancy in 2055, it's likely to kind of go up to 75. With the health infrastructure improving and with people becoming more health conscious and things like that, I think the life expectancy is growing. But what it also does is post-retirement, people need income to kind of live through your post-retirement life. And hence the increasing demand for retirement savings and pension products is kind of going up. And this is again a market which has not necessarily been milked as such, and there is a huge opportunity for us to kind of get into this space. Another trend that we are seeing is around nuclear families and financialization of savings. People are staying in nuclear families, joint families, no longer, people stay in joint families. And traditionally, people would kind of invest in gold, real estate, so on and so forth. But with India's strong economic growth and buoyant equity markets, there is an increasing preference towards financial savings. And, people are looking into investing into products like insurance, mutual funds, etc., etc. And we are seeing this trend kind of, increasing quite a lot. I think, in summary, what I'm wanting to kind of tell you guys is the fact that, despite the fact that private life insurance has been into existence for the last 20 years, the potential is huge. Even at this point of time, to a large extent, life insurance is underpenetrated. Okay. In fact, I know that a lot of people on this group are college students, or probably just kind of entered their working life and probably are in their early 20s. The private life insurance space is very similar in some sense. We've just kind of moved from our late teens, and this year the private life insurance space would be entering its 20th year. So, from being in our late teens, we're now entering adulthood in some sense. And the personality of the sector is very similar to a personality of a 20-year-old, if that's an analogy that kind of, gives you a sense in terms of the vibrancy that exists within the industry. There is huge scope, and there is space for every player to kind of grab the market. Irrespective of competition that exists, I think there is still scope for everyone to kind of grab the market and grow in this space. Let me also give you an overview of, in terms of how a life insurance company is structured, and typically, how a sale, how the operating model of a life insurance company looks like. Now, based on what the consumer requires, there is a product team that does market research, that looks at consumer insights, and accordingly, comes up with ideas in terms of what kind of product is likely to sell in the market. They get in touch with the actuary team. Actuary is a function within the life insurance company. It's a very important function. They are experts in the field of actuarial science. They look at assumptions over the future. A life insurance product typically is a product that it's not a 1 year or 2 year product. It's a product that is sold and is into existence for a period of almost 20-25 years. So they look into mortality assumptions, inflation, interest rates, so on and so forth. They price the product, get an approval from the regulator, and once the product is approved by the regulator, that's the product that is being sold. Hello?
Vibhash, just request you to disable participant annotation, please.
Okay. How do I do that?
From the view options, I think. On top, you would go.
Okay. Sorry, I'm not able to kind of do this. Is it possible for you to kind of do it?
Okay, we'll see. All right, please carry on.
Okay, I think just one sec. Give me 1 minute.
It's in the advanced setting, either in advanced setting or in more.
It's in advanced setting, is it?
Yes, advanced settings, and then disable all the participants to allow annotation.
Is it possible for you guys to kind of do it? Because I'm unable to kind of do it from here.
Okay.
Ankita, I think I've given you the controls. Check if you're able to kind of do this. Should I carry on?
Yes, please.
Okay. So sorry, I think I was talking about in terms of how a life insurance company actually is structured. So typically you have these product and actuary team who would come up with the product. You would get an approval from the regulator. Subsequently, that once the product is up for sale, you would get in touch with the sales teams. The sales and distribution team would get in touch with the customer, and there are various ways to kind of get in touch with the customer. Typically, you would, most of the sale comes through the distribution channels. So you would get in touch with distributors who could be an individual distributor, like an agent that we are all aware of, or a life insurance company would tie up with banks, NBFCs, other financial services players who in turn would kind of get in touch with their customers and sell a life insurance policy. A life insurance company also would kind of directly get in touch with its customer either through offline or online modes. So there is a large sales and distribution channel consisting of salespeople who would get in touch with the customers either through the distributor, or they would get in touch with the customers directly. They would get in touch with the prospect. They would, based on the requirements of the customer, would pitch the product to the customer, get a proposal form, get all the necessary documents, would ask the customer to go for medicals wherever medicals are required. And then from there on, the journey is taken over by the operations team. Within operations also, there is a team called underwriting team. The underwriters would look at the medical reports and they would decide whether you want to, issue the policy to the person or reject the policy. And once the underwriting decision is given, the operations team would ensure that they convert all the proposal form into a policy and hand over the policy to the customer. So basically, we spoke about underwriting team. We spoke about the products and actuary team, the sales team who sells it to the customer, the operations team who would look at all the documentation and things like that, and then convert policy and give it to the customer. Once you have the customer, you have to service the customer. And in our case, the touch point that the customer has with the life insurance company is not like in a case of a bank or like in a telecom company. The touch points are only probably once in a year when the premium is due and when we are supposed to kind of collect the premium, or it is when the policy matures and you're supposed to kind of get the money back. The customer is supposed to get the money back from the customer, or if it's a death claim, or if he's coming to you to kind of buy some annuity, so on and so forth. That's typically how a life insurance journey kind of works for a customer. So product and actually selling it through they're coming up with a product, salespeople selling it, operations converting the policy, and then you have a set of teams that service the customer on a regular basis. Now let's look at in terms of what's really happening and what are the trends that are shaping the future of work through and post COVID-19. Sorry, Mohit, should I approve and give control of the screen to you?
Yes, sir, please.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, I'll continue, Mohit.
Yes, sir, please carry on, sir.
Okay. So this is, so I spoke about two things. One is in terms of the potential of the industry, tremendous potential. It's still under-penetrated, it's under-insured as a country, and there is huge scope for us to kind of do this. And I just spoke to in terms of traditionally how a life insurance gets sold to a customer, and how a life insurance company basically is structured internally to service the customers. Okay, let's talk about in terms of what's really happening and what are the trends that shaping the future of work through and post-COVID. Well, COVID hit India sometime end February. Mid-March is when I think the number of cases started to kind of open up. And while most life insurance companies, had a BCP plan in place, honestly, I don't think anybody expected, the BCP plan was around trying to figure out how a company will operate in case one of the offices was to kind of close down. One of the critical functions was to kind of, not operate. How will we still kind of, service our customers and carry on with our business operations? That's how BCP function was initially designed, but by second, third week of March, the whole country was in a lockdown, and nobody expected all branches and offices across the country to kind of get shut down. And the big challenge for all life insurance companies was, how do you basically carry on with your business operations in an environment where everybody is locked down, nobody's in a position to kind of meet each other, everybody's locked at home, and all the offices are closed. Interesting times from the perspective that one had to really think out of the box. One had to pull up their socks. One had to accelerate a lot of initiatives that they were planning to kind of do to ensure that business operations don't get disturbed just because of this lockdown. I'll talk about in terms of what were certain things, in some sense, the status quo was being questioned. The status quo was being challenged. And I'll talk about, when I say status quo was being challenged, what exactly do I mean by status quo being challenged? Number one was dependence on physical infrastructure. Now, the way we operate, and I'm just giving you an example of HDFC Life. We've got our HO, which is based out of Bombay, but sales and distribution operates. We've got some 420 branches across the country. In these branches, typically you have branch operations and salespeople, and they are the ones who are in touch with your customers, distributors, and that's how you sell a life insurance policy. Obviously, people come to work, there are meetings that happen, there are trainings that happen. So there is a lot of dependence on the physical infrastructure. And now with COVID, obviously all your offices were closed. So how do you still kind of, carry on your business in the absence of a physical infrastructure? And that's the status quo that got questioned. Second was default face-to-face interactions. When you're selling a policy to a customer, obviously you expect to meet the customer, you meet a prospect, talk to him, understand his requirements, and then pitch a product. Or when you're servicing a customer, typically a customer would kind of get in touch with your branch operations or a customer service officer. He would come to the branch, and there would be a face-to-face interaction that would happen. And that's the default based on how companies in the life insurance sector would operate. And again, this is something which was not possible, and that's the status quo again, which got challenged. When you sell a policy, you ask for a set of documents from people, whether it's a KYC document or taking a consent form from the customer, or even when you're kind of servicing the customer, and when you're kind of paying out, if there are certain transactions which need to be serviced, or when you're making payouts on maturity or on claims that come along with death, there are a set of documents that you ask for. And the question here was, how will you collect these documents, especially in an environment where it's not possible for you to kind of get in touch with your customer. And last but not the least, in some sense, insurance is a complex product. There are many features, benefits, the whole pricing piece, comparison with some other asset classes. So it's slightly complicated. The reason why I'm mentioning all these things is because with the lockdown, I think, you had to come, one had to really challenge the status quo and think of things differently for you to continue with your business. What also was happening was, while this is happening, the consumer, there is also a shift that's happening in the consumer and the distributor behavior. So while I think your business model is being questioned because of the lockdown, there's also changes or disruptions that are happening in the external world, because of which the consumer behavior is also changing. And I'll talk about certain things that we are observing over the years. First is customer digital maturity seeing a step change. Almost 40% increase in time spent on news and social networking apps. So today's consumer, especially the younger ones, probably most of them, spend a lot of time on social networking apps, and they consume a lot of information, even news, etc., that come on some of these sites. And this is kind of increasing at a very rapid pace. The second is complex decisions getting deferred. If a consumer, and think about all of us as well, if we see something, if you're consuming something which is very complicated, complex, which we're not able to understand, I think we quickly defer the decision of consuming that service or product. Things that we don't really understand very well, we decide to kind of, if it's not simple enough, I think we decide to kind of move on or move somewhere else. Third is consumers or customers expecting convenience and customization. Think about when you are consuming, let's assume, we're consuming content on a Netflix or YouTube, and we're so used to, having things or having an experience which is personal to us. No longer is content one size fit all. Based on our preferences, artificial intelligence and machine learn kind of ensures that we keep on getting content, or we keep on getting service which is personalized to us. And from an insurance perspective also, I think the customer is expecting an experience which he's kind of seeing on some of the other services that he's consuming otherwise. Another thing is 60% indicate online as a preferred medium for buying insurance in the next 6 months. And there's almost 100% increase in term insurance Google searches compared to pre-COVID. So we're seeing a pattern wherein consume things on the digital medium, online medium, and there is a significantly higher search for term insurance on Google. And same is the case with distributors. Earlier distributors who were probably loath to moving on the digital platform, I think post-COVID, most of them have accelerated adoption of digital applications and portals, and all the things that they typically would say no to. I think companies are forced to kind of adopt things digitally and move on pretty fast. So net, I think, most insurance companies are in a situation wherein you're trying to, the status quo itself is being challenged. In fact, they are forced to kind of challenge the status quo. And you're also seeing a shift and change in the customer as well as the distributor behaviors. Now, over the years, what we've done is we've also kind of moved from being a traditional insurer to becoming an insurer of the future. And let me delve a little deeper into this. While COVID made people think, a lot of smart life insurance companies, or not just life insurance companies, but most good progressive organizations would always think proactively about in terms of what is going to disrupt their industry in the future. And companies would invest in a set of things which will hold them in good stead and not get disrupted because of changes that are happening in the ecosystem. Now, traditionally, the way an insurer would think of is you come up with a set of products, and then you would sell those set of products through your distribution channels like agency, bank, and group. Okay, from there, I think progressive insurance companies like an HDFC Life said, okay, let's kind of shift the model. Let's keep customer at the center, look at what customer insights we are kind of getting from different data points that we see, and develop products which cater to the customer. We will continue to focus on our traditional channels like agency, banker, group, but we will also create an ecosystem which can help us reach out to our customers through various means. We kind of invested in digital channels, try to figure out a way in terms of how a customer could directly come to our HDFC Life online platform and buy a customer, plus partnered with aggregators like Policy Bazaar or Bank Bazaar, so on and so forth, and figure out a way to kind of attract a customer. Traditionally, you would also sell a life insurance through traditional players like banks, NBFCs, and other financial services firms. But there was no reason why you could not tie up with new ecosystem players like telcos, e-commerce companies, internet companies, and figure out a way to kind of distribute your product as well. Plus, also developed a set of platforms, and there are various other mechanisms, not directly kind of selling a life insurance policy, but creating platforms and attracting people to those platforms, and eventually basically making them feel the need to buy a life insurance policy, and servicing them on those platforms. So what's happening based on what we've seen from being a traditional player and using traditional ways to kind of distribute a product, with the status quo being questioned, companies don't have an option, but the default option is to be digital. To a very large extent, there are a set of things that companies are doing to ensure that business continues with investments in technology and the digital space that companies would often tend to kind of get into. Let me talk about some of the things that we changed, or how existing businesses are getting converted into the digital space. One is acceleration of digital sales. There is growing traffic to digital assets. One is reimagining the entire, or reinventing the entire sales journey. One is trying to kind of make this journey as simple as possible, and the whole endeavor is to kind of ensure that you give a great experience to the customer by simplifying the entire sales journey. People are expected to do digital prospecting, login and conversion of the policies. They're expected to gain skills and capabilities that can help you get in touch with a customer and sell a life insurance policy to him without meeting him in person, and do it digitally. And also from a customer servicing perspective, even if the customer is not coming and meeting you in person, is there a possibility for you to service the customer digitally? So apart from having these digital enablers in place, it's also important from a talent's perspective to gather these skills and capabilities so that he's in a position to kind of do this well. Apart from that, there is innovation and process digitization. In a normal scenario, you would expect a person to kind of go for medicals, and the life insurance companies came up with telemedicals as an alternative. They looked at alternatives instead of, rather than collecting these physical documents and consent documents from customers, were there ways to kind of look at alternate proxies through which you could still kind of collect a lot of relevant information and convert a policy, and obviously enabling people to kind of work from home virtually by enabling them through proper infrastructure and collaboration tools. The levers for us to kind of go digital to a large extent would be looking at business models that create and act on dynamic, personalized customer insights, which are largely data driven. You need to kind of have a set of products that are simple, which are easily scalable across channels, partners, and technology interfaces. Creation of hybrid ecosystems and platforms. Developing our tech architecture, which is agile, which is microservices based, modular in nature. Having a culture within the organization which is which is on innovation and experimentation, and obviously having data governance, security, and some of these parameters in place. Because if you're moving from a traditional to a digital way of doing things, you need to kind of have some of these data governance rules and policies in place as well. So if you look at in terms of what's really happening, to adjust to the new normal, I think most companies are trying to go digital and trying to adopt digital ways of doing things. And as I said, companies that were progressive, who decided to kind of do it well in advance, they kind of invested in their technology and digital capabilities, were able to transition during this period much faster and seamlessly as compared to some other players who were playing the catch-up game. This brings me to the third part of my presentation, which is around, if this is what the future is going to look like, and if there is going to be a lot of focus in terms of going digital, and if there is going to be a lot of focus in terms of investing on technology, what would be the new realities for skill development? I just take a 10-second pause here just to give you a sense of the kind of roles that exist in a life insurance company. So when we talk about skill development, it's important for us to know what kind of roles exist within the life insurance company. Almost 85% of the organization is sales and distribution. Another 7.5% would be operations, and the rest 7.5% would be support functions. And within sales and distribution also, when I say sales and distribution, it would include both offline and online sales. But that's the large population that exists within the life insurance space. And careers, within the life insurance space also, these would be the specialized functions. The investments, product, actually, these are specialized functions. The rest of the functions, within those functions, within sales also, we see people who are fungible and move from one sales channel to another sales channel, so on and so forth. So let's look at in terms of what the new realities for skill development are, and I'll delve a little deeper into each of these points. First and foremost, if you want to be successful in the life insurance space, from a skilling perspective, I don't think one has got a choice. One has to adopt a digital mindset, and irrespective of whichever function you belong to, whether you're in sales, whether you're in operations, whether you're in underwriting, or whether you're in a support function, if you don't have a digital mindset, very soon one is likely to become obsolete. It's important to understand that things are changing at a very, very fast pace, and things are very, very uncertain as well. There is a lot of uncertainty in the air. And today, if somebody does not have a digital mindset and is stuck in time and is also stuck into kind of doing things in a physical manner itself, probably the guy will not be able to kind of survive in the industry for long. So this is one one thing that we see is very, very important. Second is learn, unlearn, and relearn. Across businesses, continuous learning is being seen as a very important trend. Again, just to kind of put things in perspective, you may have learned a set of things, and you may have got experience which you would have gathered over the last so many years. But it's equally important for you to adopt to the new normal. And adopting to the new normal would also probably mean that you will have to unlearn a few things that you learned in the past. Things that seemed relevant in the past may no longer seem relevant in the future. So you will also have to kind of make an effort to unlearn a few things and pick up new skills. And this is not like a one-time activity. It's continuous in nature, and you will continue to kind of do it till the time you want to remain relevant in your career and remain relevant in the industry. Again, when I talk about learning, learning also is not limited to just classroom learning or online learning. You can have a broader perspective to things, and you can have access to multiple mediums of learning, which could include classroom as just one form of learning, but there is mobile learning, there is MOOCs, there are so many certifications which are available. One will have to figure out a way to kind of access various mediums of learning which are available and gain as much knowledge as possible. This phrase of learning is in and training is out. Don't wait for organizations to provide you with a training program. I think you'll have to kind of dip into various mediums of learning and gain as much knowledge as possible. Good organizations will ensure that they have a learning ecosystem which is very robust, and they give access to all their employees to dip into these different mediums and gain as much knowledge and skill as possible. Also, what's going to happen is from a one-size-fit-all learning program, organizations are trying to get into a learning experience which is personalized to every learner. So rather than having a training program for a cohort of people based on your own learning requirements, organizations will keep on rendering information which is relevant to each one of you. Important to kind of have a holistic curriculum to develop your skills. So while I think it's good to kind of be an expert in one area, good organizations will have a learning curriculum which is multifaceted. It may not be just necessarily around just the insurance and the finance domain, but it could be around so many other things, like the way I've just kind of mentioned it on my slides, whether it's understanding process and quality, general management skills, foundation skills, getting to know about regulatory awareness, so on and so forth. So it's a more holistic curriculum is required for an organization to develop skills in their people. Obviously different things will have different weightages for different sets of people, but important to kind of have a very holistic and a complete curriculum. As I mentioned, organizations will have to have a holistic learning ecosystem. There's not one way to kind of teach and skill up your people. Right from having a tuition reimbursement policy, to sending people for open programs, to making them attend webinars, to having internal SMEs who kind of train people. There could be a whole host of things in the learning ecosystem which can help people gain knowledge on a set of things. The fifth is embracing different leadership styles. What also has happened post-COVID is work from home has been the new normal. And honestly, I think I know of so many companies within the life insurance space also who probably will have work from home as the new normal, even post-COVID in a normal situation. Even after COVID recedes, I foresee a lot of organizations having a hybrid model wherein a set of people work from home and a set of people work from office. So you'll have remote teams. Leaders will have to kind of learn to figure out how they will manage teams which are not necessarily present in office. There can be a possibility of floating teams. There will be models that will emerge wherein, as they say, the gig economy, wherein you will dip into a talent pool who may not necessarily be your employees. They may work on a set of projects or assignments and they get paid for that, and then they kind of move on and work with another organization if they want to. All this will require a leader who can manage cross-functional virtual teams, floating teams very well. And apart from having good intelligence, IQ, you would expect the person to have good EQ as well, because the expectations from the leader are going to be very, very different from the way they were in the past. This is my last slide. So in conclusion, all allow talent to develop skills and flourish. Organizations will have to invest in career development. They will have to ensure emotional, mental, and physical well-being, and obviously, all this by embracing diversity and being inclusive. Organizations will continue to invest in technology, in digital assets, will try to kind of move digitally. The operating model is likely to change. We will have lots of teams working from home. There will be remote teams, and companies will have to figure out a way to kind of skill their people to adapt to this new normal. And while they're doing this, emotional, mental, and physical wellness is also going to be extremely, extremely critical. Thank you. I can open it up to questions. So would like to kind of, rather than this being a monologue, would like to kind of hear some questions from you, have a dialogue, and probably if you want to kind of seek some clarifications, more than happy to answer questions if any.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, sir. A million sincere thanks to you for the sea of wisdom and knowledge which you have showered us during the amazing presentation. So now we'll go ahead and take some time for the questions now. So just a reminder to audience, please be sure to type your questions into the chat box. Okay. So, sir, it looks that we have many questions, and I'll be taking relevant and identical questions.
Sure.
So, the first question is from Mr. Karan Chopra. He's asking that how is COVID-19 expected to change the structure of insurance products?
So, as I mentioned, products are likely to be much more simpler. If you look at the consumer behavior, I think consumer tends to defer a decision if he thinks something is very complicated. If somebody comes to you with a product which is going to be extremely, extremely complicated, your natural tendency of the consumer is to kind of defer that decision. If you want things to be sold digitally, you've got to come up with a product which is simple for the consumer to understand. Rather than coming up with a product and then giving it to the distributor for him to kind of sell it, now you're trying to kind of attract a customer and trying to sell him digitally even without meeting him. So I would presume that companies will tend to kind of make products which are going to be much, much simpler and less complicated and easy for people to understand.
Okay, thank you, sir. So question number 2 is from Mr. Rajuram Charasia. He's asking for the meaning of physical savings.
Okay, typically, if you look at Indians, a lot of Indians, for them, savings would be gold, real estate, so on and so forth. From there, I think what I meant was consumers are becoming, they're staying in nuclear families and they're wanting more cash on hand, and they're looking at other asset classes like a mutual fund, insurance, FD. They're looking at other asset classes which are not physical in nature. That's what I meant by when I mentioned about that.
Sure, sir. And the next question is from Miss Ashi Mehra. She's asking how to convince customers to buy life insurance policy during COVID-19, as currently people are not interested in any sort of investment. So what can be done to change their mindset?
Okay, actually, you'll be surprised to see, in fact, there has been 100% increase in, I just mentioned about it, 100% increase in term insurance searches on Google. In fact, during and post-COVID. In fact, the life insurance sector is very interesting, especially because of COVID, there is so much of fear and paranoia that people are interested in buying an insurance product. They may not be interested in investing in some other asset classes, but the demand for insurance is certainly up, especially for protection or term products.
Okay, and the next question is from Mr. Shiv. He's asking that HDFC Life is providing insurance with a mobile recharge with the collaboration of Airtel in recent days. So can you please, should I repeat it again?
No, go ahead.
Yeah. So can you please throw some light on the brainstorming done in this disruption?
As I said, progressive organizations will always look at reaching out to a customer through non-traditional ways as well. The traditional way of reaching out to a customer is what? You tie up with a bank and the bank then sells a life insurance policy to its customer, or you go and sell online, or you have agents who would kind of, go and sell to a life insurance to a customer, so on and so forth. HDFC Life, as a company, we've always been very innovative. We've always been thinking ahead of times. And the question that we asked ourselves is, why not get in touch with some unconventional players as well? And telecom was one such player that we decided to kind of go and tie up with. And there can be various models that could possibly emerge, which can help us reach out to a customer through non-traditional ways. Airtel is a great example. So when somebody is recharging his mobile, along with that, you can also buy a life insurance policy, which was one of its kind. And there are various other such kind of methods which are being, brainstormed within the organizations, which are very, very different in some sense.
Okay, sir. And this, I'll be taking the last.
In fact, just to kind of give you an example, why just telecom? Why can't we sell a life insurance policy, through a Uber or a Flipkart or through an Amazon? There are so many, or through a automobile company, or is there something that we can do with universities, and that's how we reach out to our customers? The point I'm making is, when we are brainstorming, the brainstorming is not just to kind of figure out how we can increase our sale only through traditional players, but also basically looking at non-traditional ways to reach out to our customers. Along with that, we're also looking at how we can make the entire journey that much more simpler product, simpler customer journeys, figuring out how we can reduce our dependency on any physical touch point and make this entire thing that much more easier for a customer to kind of buy.
All right, sir. Sir, it looks like that we have covered all of our questions, and there is a last question from Somik Biswas. What should be the percentage of asset allocation in life insurance investment in a portfolio?
Actually, to give a generic answer to this question may not be right. It all depends on the requirements of the customer. So, and different customers would be at different life stages. So, it's best is to kind of, get in touch with your relationship manager, understand in terms of what your financial milestones are, life milestones are, and accordingly decide in terms of, how much of money you need to kind of put for insurance. But it certainly needs to be something that will keep your family. It covers the risk of a bread earner of the family not being around. So from that perspective, I think the exact percentage is something that you need to kind of talk to your planner, and then accordingly kind of decide in terms of what needs to be.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, sir, for facilitating the answers and for the very wonderful session. Now, I would like to invite Dr. Sangeeta Trehanji, Dean Academics and HOD of the Department of Management Sciences, to give word of thanks to our speaker.
Thank you. Thank you, Mohit. And thank you, Mr. Vibhaj, for a very, very useful and, encouraging and enlightening session. All your words of wisdom and enlightenment. Thank you to all our associates, Faridabad Management Association, and all our industry partners, especially HDFC Life, for making this possible. Thank you to all our participants who have joined in large numbers on this Sunday evening and have made this session possible. I am sure that we have all utilized this time quite well, and the session has been very lucid and insightful. We know COVID-2019 has impacted various sectors of the service industry differently. Some are truly badly hit, like tourism, travel, hospitality, construction, etc. However, insurance sector and BFSI in general, for that matter, is a rather evergreen industry, I would say, that is still looking up and has a bright future. This is not to say that it is unaffected, the business prospects or opportunities, although they are intact, but still the ways of doing business and operations and what I call the DNA of the industry is changing, or it has already changed. And I'm reminded here of this concept of disruptive innovation. As you know, this term was coined in early 1990s. Actually, it's rather old, but it has gained currency, in the past decade or so more. So I've always wondered, like, for example, in higher education, we've applied this concept that how in the past decade disruptive innovation has taken place. And the question which I always had was, like, over the past 3-4 months, the way the educational landscape is evolving with online offerings, with MOOCs, with webinars and online classes and everything becoming the new normal. I think this COVID 2019 has indeed triggered, or in fact expedited, this disruptive innovation. Not to say that edX, Coursera, and all these MOOCs thing was always there since 2012 rather, but it has definitely accelerated and it has brought them into the mainstream. So my question, I was always wondering that, is this also going to trigger, this kind of innovation in BFSI, in various sectors? And I'm glad that Mr. Vibhash has also touched upon this topic. And like he rightly said that, this COVID 2019, it has been a disruption. It basically represents a disruption, and it has actually challenged the status quo of the insurance business practices in India. And he dwelt on how it has brought about long-lasting shifts in the consumer behaviors, and how the industry is now what he called defaulting to a digital model. So by default, this is the mainstream now. So I think it is an encouraging scenario for our youngsters, for our students, trainees, young executives who want to grow in this industry. And we must know that this is an industry which is a very important, a component of Indian economy. BFSI, as you know, is fast growing, and it actually contributes approximate 8% to our economy. So Mr. Vibhash has given all of us some very good inputs, especially towards in the third part of his presentation, where he dwelt on how to develop the skill sets, in order to participate in this industry fully, especially for young aspirants who want to join this industry. What are some tips? What are some useful, inputs that, they should keep in mind? So I again thank our distinguished speaker a lot. Thank you for sparing your time on a Sunday evening and sharing your useful insights in a very lucid manner with all of us. And again, to all our participants for being here with us. And last but not the least, thank my teammates, Mr. Paramjeet Singh Ahuja, who is Assistant Professor and as well as Training and Placement Head, and also Mr. Mohit Kapil, who is also an Assistant Professor in the Department of Management Studies of Satyug Darshan Institute of Engineering and Technology. Without you guys, this event was not possible at all. So I thank you for being there. And once again, thank you all.
Thank you, Dr. Sangeeta, and thank you to all the organizers for organizing this great event.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, ma'am, for for your valuable words, kind words. Now, I would like to invite Mr. V. Tyagarajan, Executive Director, FMA, to give word of thanks to our speaker.
Good evening. It is indeed a great pleasure to propose of a Faridabad Management Association. Dr. Sangeeta has really summarized this session very well. Today's session was an excellent educative session about the insurance sector, supported by lots of statistics. FMA thanks Mr. Vibhash Nayak for conducting this webinar in a very professional manner. Also appreciate Mr. Vibhash about his in-depth knowledge of the insurance sector. Thanks again, Mr. Vibhash Nayak. FMA also thanks Mr. S.K. Sachdeva, Chairman, Board of Governors, and Ms. Dr. M.N. Deshpande, Principal SDIET, for giving us the opportunity to partner with SDIET. Also thanks to other industry partners. Thanks Dr. Sangeeta Trehan, an outstanding academician, for organizing this BFSI Summit FDP with Faridabad Management Association. Dr. Sangeeta is very passionate and put in a lot of efforts which is being depicted by the 330 plus participants, around 350 participants on a Sunday evening. This speaks highly about remote leadership skills of Dr. Sangeeta. Thanks to the organizing committee who have put in all-out efforts to make this event successful. A special thanks to assistant professors Mohit Kapil and Paramjit Singh Ahuja. They have worked tirelessly to make this event successful. And finally, thanks to all the industry participants, faculties and students who have spared their valuable time and spent Sunday evening on a very excellent learning session. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, sir, for your warm wishes and valuable words. I must say, Richard, to bhi baki hai. So yeah, I would also like to say a quote on education that, you know, education starts with the birth of an individual and it goes until it starts. So I assure on behalf of SDIT to apprise you, you know, the future programs like this. So thank you everyone. I appreciate for your valuable time and attention. Thanks again for joining us today, and we'll see you tomorrow at the same time. And we are also keeping this meeting open for next 5 minutes to submit the feedback attendance form. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.